ApparentlyJack just finished leading this Gen.G squad to a pretty reasonable finish. They ended up getting knocked out in the quarterfinals by the eventual champions in Gentlemates Alpine, and it was a pretty close series. I think they can be pretty happy with the result. Definitely a situation where they would have wanted to make it deeper, but hey, that's where we find a lot of teams, right? At the end of the day, I think it's a pretty good start because this team was signing up at least for the season, it seemed like. If you pick up Firstkiller, you know that there's going to be a little bit of an integration time, especially when you move off of a player like Nolly, who seems to be pretty, maybe selfless isn't the best word because it makes Firstkiller sound a little more selfish, but Nolly is a very malleable player who is always looking first and foremost to involve his teammates, where Firstkiller is a more solo play individual. And the reason that they made that move was off of the performance of Lands last season, where there was a lot of situations where when it came down to it, you just need somebody alongside ApparentlyJack who can create their own looks, as GenG is going to get scored on there by G2, a familiar foe. By the way, before we talk more about how this roster and especially ApparentlyJack has changed his playstyle from this season to last, first let's introduce this game. This is Game 5, Swiss Round 2. This is the 1-0 match against G2. A pretty familiar foe who got the best of them to start off the beginning of open qualifier 1 and 2. G2 got the better of him, and then GenG was able to get one on the board in that open qualifier 3. So familiar matchup here, and this is where this GenG team shines. At least they did last season, which was on land, and ApparentlyJack was a big part of that. The rub against him was always, can he step up on the big stage? That, was kind of split between himself and Jorias, having rarely got over the hump at big events. And ApparentlyJack made it all the way during last fall when GenG won that inaugural tournament from last season. Ended up not being able to win any other events, but hey, getting one is pretty darn impressive in and of itself, especially when coming into the season, people had them fairly lowly rated in North America. I think most people had them, that 5th to 8th kind of ranking, and they ended up surprising everyone. Big reason for that was Jack. He was unbelievable last fall. Led North America and Europe in goals per game at above a goal per game. I think it was just him and Vatira who had that mark from last fall split. Really high assist numbers as well. He also had one of the top 3 ratings, which made sense. He was basically filling the stat sheet for that team, where he was kind of the primary creator, taking a lot of high volume of shots, and then Nolly, a great passer, Chronic, very mechanical, kind of picking their places and getting put into good situations by ApparentlyJack. Now instead of Nolly, you have Firstkiller, somebody who has a higher a longer and extended tool belt, if you will, of creating his own looks, and that's really come in handy. And at least on paper, it's exactly what you would want. It's that gap that they were trying to fill. That Nolly, for all of his incredible qualities, that's just not one of them, especially when you compare him to Firstkiller. So we knew that this team, was going to take a little bit of time to integrate. And we've really seen them take some strides. We talked about them starting off not being able to overcome the giant of the region in G2, and they ended up eliminating G2's ability to get the perfect, sweep, as it were, of winning all 3 events, as ApparentlyJack is going to roll in an easy one here to put them up 3-1. But getting over that hurdle of beating G2, I think, was huge for their confidence going into this event, because we know that ApparentlyJack is a great leader. At least I consider him that. And in a lot of the comms videos that they've been kind enough to release, we have seen that Chronic and Firstkiller seem to get, I don't know if jittery is the right word, but they definitely get excitable, especially as big series get deeper and deeper. And I think Jack is always kind of a calming force to kind of, hey guys, like, let's just, no pressure, let's just play our game, be confident, because they really do have the experience and the quality to beat any team in the world. And Jack always does a good job of being a reminder to that point. But I think a great first start for this team, if you have to losing to 7 against the eventual champions, you can, have your hat, hang your hat on that as a pretty good result. And we're just going to see what they do moving forward. I would be absolutely blown away if this team makes any adjustments. It seems like overall North America is pretty quiet going into this trade window, and I think the big barometer for this Gen.G team, as they are going to wrap up their victory here with Jack getting at least a digit on each of his effects there, 5 shots, 1, 1, and 1 across the board. But I think a big thing for them is going to be, can they overcome G2 as the lead team out of North America? The rest of the pack is going to be very strong. I think this Swiss format suits this Gen.G team very well, where, if you're going double Elam or something, like, maybe you can falter and the results look a little poor, but I think that this they have enough talent to win out time more often than not. A couple little quick stats that I thought were interesting from the major. Jack was the 4th most forward in the event, which I think speaks to kind of that creation that he's going for. He was last in saves. If you want to kind of find the juxtaposition there, he's the most forward with no saves. So really spending a lot of time in the offensive end, thinking offensively, generating offense, and kind of allowing Firstkiller and Chronic, an incredible duo, to play most of the defensive roles for that team. He was 4th in assists, which is something that Jack has kind of made a pretty common part of his statistical output. Always high in the assist numbers. Last fall, he was all the way up to 0.8, which was very high. 0.63 over the course of this fall, but 4th at 0.72, I guess, to give you all the numbers for context. 3rd in supersonic speed, and 2nd in percent of time spent supersonic. So Jack was supersonic 23% of his time on the pitch, which again makes a ton of sense if you're kind of an offensive player looking to generate offense for yourself. So what do you think about this team? How'd you feel about their first split in the major result? Who is the player that you are most interested to see how they appear in this second split? I think a lot of people have their eyes on Firstkiller, but I think it makes sense to look at somebody like Chronic too, who definitely deserves a video all his own. He's been somebody who's had to, I think, sacrifice or adjust his role the most between him and Jack with bringing on Firstkiller to the roster. So excited to see what they can do to begin Major 2 Open qualifiers, and we certainly anticipate seeing them at a LAN. But guys, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. Looking forward to seeing what you leave in the comments below, and until next time, take it easy.